kick off. Okay, so welcome everyone to Thoughts on Thursday webinar. Today's topic is closing sales. No product sells itself. And many of us, many companies and salespeople have closing ratios of 25% or less, 1 in 4. The cost of losing 3 or 4 bids to every one we win is huge. Wasted time, wasted effort, lost revenue and profit. Today's speaker, whom many of you know, is Bob Hayward. Built several profitable businesses from scratch, sold multi-million consulting and training programs to companies like BMW, Unilever, SEB, and written an Amazon bestseller, Persuade, how to persuade anyone about anything. So welcome everyone. Welcome, Bob. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Walter. I appreciate the introduction. So closing sales, and not just closing them, but making sure they're as profitable as possible and trying our very, very best to close them more often. Walter will be in the background and help me with the chat and a few other things, and we'll work our way through our webinar today. Talking about the chat, do reprogram it so that any comments you make are seen by all panelists and all attendees. Otherwise, it just comes to the panelists. So people wonder what's going on sometimes. The promise I make to you today is that we will cover over 30 ideas on how to improve your closing ratio. We're going to make your sales more profitable today. And we're going to look at 3 things in particular. We're going to look at the main reasons a lot of people, including me in the past, think it's hard to close a sale. We're going to look at that mindset and see if we can change some of those paradigms so it's a bit easier for us to make progress. We're going to talk about and work on how and when it is best to close a sale so that we can discover some better approaches. Walter, have you still got your microphone on?
Yep.
Thank you. And we're going to cover a number of practical closing questions that will work, that do work, and have worked repeatedly for me. There is going to be one lucky prize winner with a huge prize. So the huge offer will come at the end. If you're still with us at the end, then you might be a recipient of a very special prize. There is also a special offer for everybody who's here at the end. And for those who complete the survey, there's even more extra special and practical rewards. You will be directed to that automatically as you leave the webinar. Please take notes, whether you're putting that on pen and paper or using a digital format, I don't mind, but the more notes you take, the more likely you are to remember something. If you just listen for the next hour or so, then 80% or more will be gone by this evening. If we record stuff and act on it quickly, then you'll get a lot of value from today. And that's my heart, that you get a lot of value from today. So let's start by looking at some of the flaws in our mindset. I'm going to open a poll in a moment and ask you to think about and select what you consider to be 3 common negative, incorrect thoughts about closing. Here comes the poll. The answers are starting. It's interesting when you're looking at the scores coming in. See which one's in the lead. About 40% of you have voted now. I'll try not to talk too much as you're thinking. About 60% voted now. Some interesting results coming through. give you another 15 seconds, let's say. 70% voted now. Okay, we'll end the poll there. 76% voted, and being too busy thinking about what to say next and not listening well enough is coming up with the highest score at 47% share of the votes. Interesting. We've got things like entertaining a negative mental self-talk, thinking that we know how the buyer is thinking, not understanding or giving priority to the prospect's clues and signals. Fascinating. Thinking that closing is confrontational. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. Let me share those results with you. I've had a little scan of them. Here they come. So yes, here we see 40% voting for entertaining negative self-talk. 41% thinking we know what the buyer's thinking. Not understanding the buyer's priorities. For that top one, too busy thinking about what to say next, so not listening well enough. And of course, many of us have in the past, if we don't still think of selling as a telling exercise, having to tell interesting stories. So I'm pleased with the results that you've created for us. I think they're very fair and reasonable. It's very common for people to be busy thinking about what they're going to say next. They're not well prepared enough. It's very easy to get into a negative mindset and then have negative self-talk. I've had those issues myself. It's easy to think we know what the buyer's best interests are without really understanding. And for a long time, I did think closing was confrontational, that there was a kind of win-lose thing going on. So thank you for that survey result. So our mindset, how we think about things, how we see things ourselves between our own ears, they are really important. And if they are negative, we're going to project that negativity on the people around us, including our prospects or our customers. Of course, there are more positive attitudes and more positive mindsets that we can have about closing. So I'm wondering what you think some of those more positive and productive attitudes would be about closing. So in the chat, please type in one or two of what you consider to be really important, positive, productive attitudes about closing.
So you'll get the order, Bob.
Get
hit
the order.
Targets, listening,
hit target.
humor, trying to find a solution for the client, providing solutions, win-win. You're helping them decide to get what they need. You've got the solution, asking questions, building customer trust, client seeing, understanding the value. No fear. Aim for the sky and hit the ceiling, helping them solve a problem. If you don't ask, they might not. Helping the customer with his problems or her problems.
Yeah, very good.
Working with the client.
Brilliant. Thank you, Order. Thank you, team. That's a great set of mutual agreement. Excellent, excellent. Getting excellent rapport with a client so they've got no issues working with us. So there's a whole host of really very useful thought processes in there. Yeah, my old dad used to say, shoot for the moon, don't shoot for the top of the tree, because if you shoot for the top of the tree, you'll blow your foot off. So always aim high, my son. I didn't understand him at the time. I was probably only 6 or 7, bless him. But if we are in a win-win mindset, if we're about providing solutions, if we're about listening, if we're about trying to build a relationship that's solid, and yes, Melvin, using some humor, if you can get people to laugh, they'll often sign things for you. So being well received and being able to get reactions, emotional reactions, positive emotional reactions from people, it is a very important thing. So thank you. I totally agree. We have to find a way of shifting that paradigm sometimes, because what goes on between our ears is a major issue. And for me, it was one of the big stumbling blocks in my early ineffectiveness as a salesperson. I didn't believe I had the right. I didn't believe in my own confidence. I didn't believe in what I was doing. In the chat, question for you. What, in your opinion, is the #1 reason for failure in sales? Not asking, not listening, not understanding, self-doubt, confidence, poor qualification, not asking, scared to ask, not prepared enough, lack of follow-up, not enough customization, poor rapport, talking price, not believing in your offer, not getting a match between the product and the service and the need. Okay, some fantastic answers, and they all are reasons why people fail in selling. We're talking about selling today, not sailing. So there are all reasons why we do. Research, which was published in a book called The 99 Mistakes That Good Salespeople Make, suggested that the #1 reason of failure in sales was the fear of rejection. And of course, sales in many people's mind is a game of rejection, because if you are putting ideas in front of prospects and 3 or 4 or 5 times out of every 1 time they say no, you're going to end up with far more no's than yes. If you start to absorb that rejection, where you're getting more no's than yeses, then of course that starts to build up, and we get what's called call reluctance. We don't pick up the phone, we don't go and see people, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot out of self-protection, because why would you keep putting yourself in a place where people keep saying no? Of course, we can personalize that no and think it's about us, and that kind of makes it even worse. We could try and distance ourselves from the no and say, actually, it's not about me, they're turning down a product or a service. I mean, we don't get upset when we offer people cream to go with their apple pie and custard when they're around for a Sunday dinner. That doesn't affect us in the same way. That's just somebody saying no, but we know they're just saying no to the cream, not to the personality that you are. So it isn't personal, but even so, it's really tough to keep hearing that no. Do we have to? I'm not sure we do. If we get better at this stuff, then actually we can have a much higher closing ratio and balance it off a bit more. Definitely the rejection is not personal. It is definitely not about you. It's not about me. It's got nothing to do with us in reality. We do have to distance ourselves from it. In the chat though, what would you say is that one objection, the one objection that we all find, all salespeople find, all of us find the most difficult? What is the one objection we all find the most difficult? Please put your thought in the chat. Price, money, not winning the sale, no need, haven't got the budget, not now, I'm not closing quickly enough, it's been postponed, your product's not good enough, I've got no authority, it's too expensive, they're not even listening to me, I can't get a response out of them, they've always bought from somebody else, they've got reluctance to change, the technology is great but the lead time's too long, engaging the wrong person, they can't sign off, they've got to consider the competition, poor connection, poor rapport. All those are valid, absolutely valid. Price, the wonders of price. So it took me a while to realize that if I believed the objection, it had a major implication. You know, I for many years as a freelance trainer was happy to take £600 a day. I thought that's what I was worth. I never thought about asking some more, even though I had some private clients that didn't come through the big training company. I was rebooking myself at one client, Experian in Nottingham, for 2 years. I just passed the leads back to the company that put me in there in the first place. Now, there's no way that Experian were paying £600 every time I showed up, and I was showing up 3 or 4 times a month. They were paying far more than that, whether that be £1,200 or £1,500. what's my worth? Was it £600 or was it £1,500? In my head, I was only worth £600. So all I ever asked my own direct clients was £600. If people gave me a price objection, I wasn't sure that I was worth that. So it's fascinating that if we believe in the objection, it is incredibly difficult to overcome it. If you believe it should have a warranty, an extended warranty, and it doesn't, then you'll have real difficulty overcoming that objection. If you believe the lead time is too long, the IT product's great, but the lead time is too long, then you're going to have real trouble overcoming any objection about lead time. It's the fact that we believe the objection. If it resonates with us and our values and our beliefs, we're going to struggle. And that might be price, that might be warranty, that might be timescales, that might be customer service, could be anything. The sale is made between our ears first. Have a think though about the word no, put it in the chat. What do you actually, in your mind, define no to mean? If somebody says no to you, what does it actually mean? No means on. Well, interesting, Donnie. I have to talk to you about that. On to the next. Clear off. Stop bothering me. Not now, possibly. I need to speak to my line manager. Not now. Not forever. Take the hint, buddy. Give me space to think. Maybe. Does no mean maybe? This doesn't work for me. They don't want the product or service yet. Wrong time, no money. Depends on the tone it's said in. Yes, emotional tones do make a difference. You've not explained the benefits well enough. That's my boundary. I'm not going any further. Clients don't understand the advantages. No has a lot of meanings, and the meaning it has in our head is going to affect how you deal with it. For me, it is meaning not yet. I accept that no probably means no, not today. It doesn't mean no, not you. It doesn't mean no, not ever. So for me, it's not the final nail in the coffin. And in a face-to-face or telephone or Zoom meeting, I probably will push past the first no I get. I will treat it more like an objection. So for me, it's just not today. We sell to a moving parade, and you may be selling to a company where that buyer or that manager says no for now. That buyer or that manager may or may not change in the next year. There's a typical churn in most jobs of 20 to 25%. So you sell to a moving parade. And even if somebody says no to you, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the final straw. It does mean no, just not now. And we can push around that sometimes by using it as an objection and trying to answer it. It could mean you've got to come back at another time. It's important how you frame the no. It's not about us, it's not about you. It's got nothing to do with us, in fact. It's got something to do with the prospect, but nothing to do with us. Here comes 7 typical concerns that prospects have, also from the book, The 99 Mistakes Good Salespeople Make. Which of these 7 very common concerns from the prospect does the prospect rank as the top concern? Please put your answer in the chat. Price, service, reliability, service, competence, price, quality, reputation, price, reliability, unknown, thanks, price, reliability, reputation, price, service. Yeah, we definitely got service very high up. We've got price very high up. Would have been interesting, I suppose, to do this as a poll. We've had a more precise answer. Not up there yet, but value, which is price and quality. Good point, Julie. We do need to talk about value rather than price. Prospects don't always frame it as value. That's often something. Yes, Sasha presented, a poll would have given the percentages. So of these concerns, actually, the survey from the book, The 99 Mistakes Good Salespeople Make, is actually service and staff competence. That first bullet point was their biggest concern. Every interaction that any part of our organization has with a prospect and with a customer adds or takes away from their perception of us. And if they believe some of our staff to be less than efficient, less than effective, then their feelings about us and their decision making around us will go down. If every interaction with us uplifts them, if every interaction with a receptionist uplifts them, gives value to them in some way, enhances their day in some way, then they enjoy the experience, they come back for more of that, they're far more likely to buy. Their belief in our ability to deliver is based on their experience of the competency of everybody they meet. Second random question. Which of these concerns ranks 7th? Put your answer in the chat. Price, payment terms, price, payment terms, price. Price, convenience, payment terms, price times 3. Payment terms, convenience, reputation, payment terms. Lots going for payment terms, lots going for price. Those are definitely the 2 most popular. In fact, it's price. If you ask a prospect, if you're going to do a fair bit of business with a new supplier, what would you rank as the most important elements or criteria about their company and their offer? Actually, buyers don't put price first. Now, when I first read the book, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe this survey. It didn't make sense to me because I had an awful lot of price objections. So I did my own survey. At that point, the company was called Time Power back in the day. And I hired a student from Exeter University, and they did some research for me across 600 companies in the Southwest, and they asked the same question that's in the book. And I got pretty much the same answer. Price came out 7th on that survey, and 7th out of 16 criteria. So it wasn't the lowest, but it definitely wasn't the highest. So I had to do a lot of hard thinking about how I was approaching this. And it's fascinating what goes on in our head. The sale is made between our own ears first. Whatever we believe, good or bad, changes everything. If you don't believe you're worth the money that's on the price tag that comes with your product or your service, then you're not. The product isn't. If you believe it should have an extended warranty and it doesn't, if you believe delivery is too slow, if you believe customer service or training is poor, you struggle to get over it. So when I first started as that freelance trainer, it was very tough for me to ask for anything beyond that. What changed that was an experience where I made a significant difference to one of my clients. And I'm talking huge, big international insurance company. And over a weekend, facilitating an exercise, the team of brilliant people produced a stunning result. And over the next year, 18 months, 2 years, they saved in the region of £100 million for their company globally. And I thought, I had a bit to play in that. Those 2 days, that created a huge return. And that changed my paradigm forever about value. And it really, really matters that we have a tremendous attitude about ourselves and an attitude about our products and our services. We have to have a really strong belief in ourselves. If we have that, we've got a chance. If we are sold out on what we offer, then we have a chance of selling it to others. If we are not completely 100% sold out on the offer, then any little niggle along the way can easily derail us. Now, as part of that paradigm shift that is largely about what goes on in our brain, we also have to accept that a buyer is going through something that we're not going through. We have a sales process that we learn, but that's not a process that a buyer goes through. They go through a buying process, and that is a never-ending journey. And this was a revelation to me. You know, when I read this stuff from Neil Rackham, that actually it's somebody's job constantly to buy something, to decide what the best option is for their company, that they've got questions and tasks and requirements about every step in this process, and that it's cyclical, that the minute they've made a decision to buy a competitor's service or product, they're still a prospect. In fact, they're more of a prospect because they actually use the products and services I supply. They just made a daft decision this time around. So I have to follow them through the implementation and help them realize over time that things change, help them recognize they've got some more needs, help them evaluate some options, help them resolve some concerns and make a better decision. If I act as a trusted advisor, if I act as a buying assistant, if that's my mindset, then I can support, I can inform, I can influence, I can guide, I can nudge, I can be closing all the way through that journey. So I flipped my confrontational sales approach into one which is about creating value. And at least one of you earlier on mentioned the word value in the chat. You know, it's about creating a valuable relationships. It's about creating an understanding of what's valuable to the other person. You know, this is a generic process, still a sales process. It's non-confrontational. Every stage is a win-win. Every stage gives you an opportunity to be genuinely, insatiably curious, interested in the other person, rather than trying to be interesting. We're seen as a value adder, not a taker. There's something in every step for the prospect, as well as for me. And certainly it is not just about me. Unless there's a win-win, then that value doesn't exist. It's about creating relationships. It's about opening minds. It's about creating and demonstrating pain and gain. It's about getting agreement on the next step. It makes things so much simpler. And when we put these kind of smarts at the front end, closing in this sales process, agreeing next actions, is not that hard. And it's not the last step. Because the last step is building lifetime value. And please think, you don't have to put it in the chat because it's a bit personal. You know, what is the average lifetime value of your best clients? How long are they with you? How much do they buy? How many referrals do they give you? That's all live research and development. And if you can grow that business and gain referrals and give them referrals, then the value add is significant, and you'll continue through a cyclical process of adding value. And that is the paradigm shift that made the final difference for me. Yes, having looked at some of the flaws that I felt, my own belief in myself, I had to change it. By looking at some of the flawed thinking around the closing process, that it was one of confrontation, that it was one where somebody would win and somebody would lose, that it was also about me. Taking a look at my own beliefs and whether I was sold out completely in what I was doing, understanding the real value through testimonials of other clients, understanding exactly what value can be added. All of us can do those things and explore those things. So we've started this session by looking at some of the flaws in our mindsets because they undermine our ability to close. So in the chat, please put one thing that has hit you, one thing that you've been reminded of so far today. Act as a buying assistant, 26 years. Need to listen. It's all in our heads. Sale is made in our minds first. Self-belief, it's not about me. I must believe in myself. Do not leave it all to the close. Definitely not. Definitely not. Add value all the way through. Be curious. Be insatiably curious. Be interesting. Cool. Listen, some great answers there. Thank you. So we've looked at mindset. Let's take a look at how and when to close. You know, we've shifted a few paradigms about our belief systems, and that can make a difference to our closing ratio. But let's talk about when and how to close. Start with a definition, just to make sure we're on the same page, because we haven't defined closing yet. So in the chat, in a short sentence, how would you define closing? Getting the order, moving to the next stage. Getting to the yes. Yes, I want your service. Order agreed. Agreeing the next step. Receiving the order. Arriving at an agreement. Agreeing a way forward. Order placed. Making a commitment. Signed contract. Agreeing to a meeting. It happens when you do all the other stuff well. Very good. Agreement to buy. Next steps. Commitment to buy. To purchase my products. Ask, is there anything other than the price that would stop you from ordering now? Good. Trial closing question. Very good. We'll get to some of those later. So here's a good close. Taught to me by my good friend Nick Baldock, who sadly is nowhere with us. Probably one of the best salesmen I ever had the pleasure of working with. Certainly one of the best sales trainers that I've ever worked with. He defined a good close as a fair and reasonable request at a fair and reasonable time. And when he taught me that, I had another paradigm shift. Okay, so closing is just a fair and reasonable request at a fair and reasonable time. It's not the thing at the end where we get someone to sign a piece of paper. Interesting. But who decides what's fair and reasonable? If a close is a reasonable request at a reasonable time, who decides? Put it in the chat. Who do you think? The prospect. Both parties, mutual, both of you, both parties. It's got to be both sides. Mutual, both parties. The customer. Okay, careful, Sasha, they might not be a customer yet. Clients, the seller. Julie, they might not be a client yet. We do have to differentiate between the prospect and the clients. Customers pay us money. Everybody else is a prospect. Get agreement with both the prospect and the prospect. Bob, you could ask everyone to check that their chat box is set to everyone. All right, yes, do remember to reset your chat so it goes to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, some of your colleagues won't see what you're saying. Now, in Nick's view, and I do agree with him, that the person who is best to decide this is the prospect. Now, of course, we would like to have a little play with it. We'd like to think that we're being fair and reasonable, but the person who is the buyer, the person who's going through the buying process and has to make the decision in the end, because that's their job. The job is to improve their company and improve what they do. So it has to be their decision in the end, not mine. I have to release that and allow them that freedom. It's their choice. It's their choice if it's a fair and reasonable question at a fair and reasonable time. So I can relieve myself of that responsibility and at the same time pick up another responsibility, that I've got to be thoughtful and I've got to be ahead of the game and I've got to make sure that I'm making requests which are fair and reasonable. So that takes effort. Now, if we think closing is purely the handshake at the end or the elbow bump these days, then we give ourselves as salespeople a big problem. Can you close a door before it's opened? If the door or if the mind is already closed, we can't close an already closed door. So we have to open the mind before we can close the sale. If you can close a sale, you must already have opened the mind to the problems, to the options, to the benefits, to the risks. You know, can someone really make an important decision before they thoroughly reflect on how they think and they feel about it? Well, unfortunately, yes, some people do. We shouldn't, and I hope most of you don't. Most of us, I hope, take some time to reflect how we think and how we feel about things before we make a decision. Most of us still make decisions emotionally, and justify it with logic later. But where there is no need, as some of you have mentioned already in the chat, there is no sale. In fairness, if there's no realization of the need, we might be able to see the need, but they might not be able to see it. There is no sale. So in order to get the close, we have to get fixated on opening the prospect's mind. We have to get fixated with generating their self-realization of their own pain. So a definition of closing then is that we can actually, with this definition, be closing all the time. Now, I was taught as a very early stage as a salesperson, years before I met Nick, that ABC, always be closing. I was taught that. I never understood what it meant until Nick explained that I can work in questions into any conversation that enable me to keep closing. For instance, I can build a staircase of agreement and take people through attention, interest, desire, and action, and improve their likelihood of buying by asking every now and again a series of closed questions. I can open a phone call with a closed question. Can you help me, please? I would want to design a question that is 90% certain to get me a yes, but I've got to think about what that question is. And now they've responded, we can chat for a few minutes with open questions and dialogue. And then I could throw in another closed question. Whoops, got my sequence out of step. Let's try that. Okay, are you okay to talk on the phone for a little longer? Another closed question. I've asked permission to proceed. I'm 90% certain I'll get a yes. More chatter, more questions, more options. Maybe I summarize a little of what they told me. And then, oh dear, what have I done wrong with this sequence? Did you say 5 offices? I can confirm some of the evidence they've given me, and I can be certain that they've told me a real fact, and I can rely on that fact. And yes, I've got the sequence again. That's because I copied the original slide and didn't change the build of the slide, silly boy. Is this really costing you X? I can summarize and confirm and secure more evidence. It's another closed question. I am building a staircase of agreement, interlaced with lots of closed questions, lots of open questions, I should say. I am asking the occasional closed question right throughout the journey. I'm confirming the evidence that I've dug up. And I can ask a trial closing question towards the end when I make a recommendation and be 90% sure that I'll get the yes. So always be closing is easy when you make it about a fair and reasonable request at a fair and reasonable time. The strategy is to see closing as making that fair offer. Questions that help the role of the buyer, that help the buyer make their decisions, that help them through their process, that are in line with the stage of the conversation you're at, that mix open questions with closed questions. And yes, we have to think about those questions beforehand, pre-call planning, and ensure as best as possible they get us a yes. Of course, as a salesperson, prognosis before diagnosis is called malpractice, just like with your GP or your surgeon. A doctor cannot prescribe a solution until we have a full understanding of what the problem is. So we can't go for the close without opening the prospect's mind. Of course, to make closing more profitable and more frequent, to improve our closing ratios, we have to look at the opportunity for them and for us. We have to understand their goals, what they're trying to achieve for their business or their team. They have choices, they have options. And as a trusted advisor, we can be a sounding board and a guide. And in an exploration of what they're trying to achieve, somewhere in there is a gap, somewhere in there is a problem, somewhere in there is a pain point. That restriction, that constraint is what we have to diagnose. That's what we have to uncover. Maybe even for them, they didn't realize it. And as we visit doctors, we often don't know when we go and see a GP what is wrong. I went to my doctor nearly a year ago now with a pain in my left knee. And he strangely asked me what car I drove. And I said, I've just changed. I've got a little SLK Mercedes sports car, it's automatic. He said, okay, your left knee is having a problem because you're putting too much pressure on your left foot to keep it fixed. Your knee is too straight probably at the same time. Change your knee position, relax your foot, you'll be fine. And he was right. It's so annoying. So often when we go and see a doctor, when you see a trusted advisor, when you see a buying assistant, we should help with that self-realization. So we have to ask probing questions to find out what the real problem is. And here's a game changer. The decision to buy happens in the negative present, not in the future benefits. In fact, the features and benefits are irrelevant if there's no need. In fact, if there's no realization, self-discovery of the need, there is no sale. It's vitally important that people go through an experience, the prospect, where they come to the conclusion, along with you, that there's a problem. And if we can get people into that kind of conversation, then you've got a chance of that self-realization. And then, having discovered the pain, we can begin to work on that. The decision to buy comes in the diagnosis phase of the sales and the buying process. Most of us think it comes at the end after we've done our pitch and our recommendation. Sorry, it comes at the diagnosis stage. So how do you get people into that kind of conversation? This is a technique I use called the A to Z Diagnostic Question. I'll let you read the question on the screen. This is something I would ask fairly early on in a discovery process. I'm going to change slides in a second. It's the same words. I've just emphasized some with orange highlighting. As you look at the entire process, I want them to look at the whole process of whatever the topic of conversation is, starting at the very, very beginning and finishing at the very, very end. And even though compliment coming, Mr. Prospect, because you're a really sensible person, you've been doing really, really, really well with this stuff, which parts are you most concerned about? That tends to get you into a topic. It tends to allow you to then probe and investigate. And when you ask all those wonderful, normal, open-ended questions, do remember to keep the why questions suppressed. It's not going to help that much. You want observations, not opinions. So if you use the what, the who, the where, the when, and the how, you're far more likely to get observations, not opinions. We can then probe beyond the cause and the problem to think about the costs and the implications. These make a big difference. The diagnostic conversation is a dialogue with a prospect that processes and progresses from their job responsibilities and produces evidence of indications of cause, of consequence, of priority. We understand what's happening. We understand the impact of it happening. We understand how bad it is. We understand the cost of it. We understand if it's bad enough to do something about it, because the buying decision is made in the negative present. Yes, to help the close, we've got to build our relationships deep and wide. Empathy can help us with that. So if you've missed Walter's seminars on emotional intelligence and empathy, it would be really helpful to for you to look at the recordings and pick up on that. But at least get 4 legs deep in a chair. At least make sure, unless your product or service is purchased on a credit card, that you nobble the committee. Follow the pain as a consultative diagnostic approach. Most people will allow you to do that if you're helping them build a portfolio of evidence of the problems they've got. It's called following the pain chain. Yes, if you're going to close successfully, you've got to understand the decision-making process, the people involved, the process itself, the steps they take, the criteria they use apart from price. And the best way to dig that out of them is to ask them about previous buying decisions and situations. use questions like, apart from the obvious topic of price, how did you decide to buy X instead of Y? And if you're asking about historical events, they're more likely to tell you how they decided in the past, because they're not thinking about that they're going to be consistent in the way that they make decisions, and normally people are. Yes, we've got to produce an exact solution, because if we don't produce an exact solution that matches perfectly to their situation, then they will have concerns to resolve, and they will have to see other options. That's their job. You might be able to help them with that, but they are going to have to consider alternatives if it's not a perfect fit. Yes, we can test the resources they've got available. You've got to watch out for the other considerations, because money might be up for grab for two things: your IT kit and then building a mezzanine floor with somebody else. So your competitor is not another IT company. It could be a general builder who's going to put in a mezzanine floor. So money can only go so far. Watch out for that. When you're presenting, you can also be closing. This is a superb technique for making sure that you're always closing, even when you're presenting. So in a presentation, show them the feature, tell them the benefit, link it with the pain. Always link the benefit with the pain, the gain with the pain. Show them the feature, tell them the gain, tell them they get rid of the pain, and ask a question. Ask a question. Really important sales technique. You might want to write it down. I will say it a couple of times. When you make a statement and follow it with a question, and the other person engages with your question, they will not question your statement. When you make a statement and follow it with a question, and the other person engages with your question, they won't question your statement. So right throughout your presentations, make sure you show, you tell, you ask, and then you're still closing while you're presenting. Of course, you want to keep the pain and the gain in there, and you can easily do that with a little structure like this. Bob, earlier on, you said you've got these kind of issues. I recommend you take this next step, which means you can get rid of this kind of problem and you get these kind of benefits. Is that the sort of thing you would find really helpful? These are simple structures. They're easy to learn. We want to learn them so well that we can't possibly forget them. And we can adapt them on the hoof and say them 3 times in a row, and each time they sound different. The customer has a great experience. Emotionally, they're engaged with the process, but they keep hearing this association between what you're recommending, the present pain, and the future gain. You're linking statements with questions. We have to make sure that the perceived value is greater than the perceived cost. And you may have to remember that you're closing a sale that's got more to do with stuff than just the concept you're selling. Yes, it might involve finances, but it might also involve implementation. And the internal change might be the resistance. At the end of the diagnostic phase, you really need to be having as many of these 15 things nailed. Our job is to discover during the diagnosis phase and confirm by using closing questions so that we've got the evidence. We've heard the emotion, we've found the people, we've checked the resources. We've been closing all the time while we've been working on this. Any gaps are a red flag. We go back and start investigating, discovering, and confirming and closing down on those facts. Remember, the decision to buy lies in the negative present, not in the features and benefit. So far in this section, we have looked at when and how to close. In the chat, what's one thing that's hit you? diagnosis is a good term. A, B, C, link the benefit to the pain. Good vision, right. Go looking for bruises. Okay, ask a question. By decision lies in the reason it came to see us. Okay, opening questions into space with closed questions. Show, tell, ask. Love that process. Show, tell, ask. Okay, well done, team. So let's look at the final part of our session today. Oops, have I gone one slide too far? Typical closing questions. If you've done the work so far so well in the discovery phase, and we've confirmed and closed on all of those issues, then really this part is easy. And a good close still is a fair and reasonable request at a fair and reasonable time. We still got to take the decision maker through their next step in the buying process. Don't go too fast, don't go too far. But when you think about the request you're going to make, idealistically in the pre-call planning stage, think about the answers to those two questions. How do you make the next step an obviously sensible one for the prospect to take? And what relevant value do they gain in return, regardless of whether they become a customer in the end? Now, forgive me if the next step that you ask somebody to take is obviously sensible and adds relevant value, relevant to them, regardless of whether they become a customer in the end, then 99 times out of 100, I think they're going to say yes, because it's a no-brainer. And our thought processes are far more about our requests than the fancy questions that we have to ask. You don't need fancy questions if you put the thought into the diagnosis and you put the thought into the recommendation. But to give you an example, here's my favorite trial closing question. Based on what you've heard so far, here are some of the questions. Based on what you've heard so far, what are some of the questions you'd like to have answered before we go ahead? And normally that's enough to get us a reaction. And the vast majority of the time, my closing ratios bounces between 70 and 80%. And most of the time, people say, not sure, Bob. And that's it, we can go ahead. Occasionally, they throw up a question. If they throw up a question, it's normal, it's okay. Then we'll look at the concerns that we've got and we'll deal with them. So on a buyer's never-ending journey, there occasionally are objections. These are the common objections that people come up with. And there really aren't that many more than those 10. And therefore, if you're getting objections, it means that you're not answering them before they come up, which is kind of crazy. Why go through all of that pain only to get something that you could have dealt with before? So take note as you get through a sales process. It's called live R&D. Record the objections you're getting and start to put answers earlier in the whole journey to answer those objections so they're dealt with before you get there. There is no point banging your head against a brick wall. Find an answer, if possible, with a testimonial to back it up from a current client, and that will answer the objection. Now, we will have an objection handling webinar in a short while, in a few weeks' time, so we'll leave handling objections to that section. Agreed actions, this is a direct close. How about we go ahead now then? You could go for an alternative close. Do you want the red one or do you want the blue one? You could go for a trial close. I've given you one favorite already. Another one would be, I want you to feel 100% comfortable with what I'm recommending. So is there anything else we need to agree so that you're 100% confident in going ahead? You could use an assumptive close. Works very well with the double checkers, the worriers, more of a statement than a question. An example would be, the easiest way to get started is for me to do X and for you to do Y. If we both took those options to actions today, then you'll have your widget delivered and installed in plenty of time. One of my other favorites is the if and would close, which is a bit of a negotiation. If I do this, would you go ahead? If I can get you this tomorrow, would you sign the order today? If I could deliver the training on the 25th of December, would you sign the order today? So if is variable, would is fixed, and that works a treat. So we've discussed a few really simple closing questions, and you'll probably realize there is nothing fancy in there. You don't need anything fancy. If the diagnosis has been done, if the evidence has been found, if the people have been found, and you've confirmed and closed all of those things earlier, the sale is made in the negative present. We must confirm and close on that negative present before we pitch. And when we pitch, we must link the pain and the gain to it. So as we come to the close of our session, what's been the best idea today for you? Put it in the chat. Ada, attention, interest, desire, action, self-belief, believe in your worth, link to pain with the gain. Show, tell, ask. Thank you, Stuart. Tony, we believe in the objection, then it's very hard. Thank you. Ian, be like the doctor. James, diagnosis before proceeding. Different types of closing. Assumptive, directive, if would. Diagnose for pre-close. Good. Great new questions. Believe in yourself with the products. All the closes. Try all the closes. Good for you. Quality of service is vital. Price is not as much. Cool. Okay. Now, thank you so much for being part of today. And I'm so excited about next week. We have a real superstar from America joining us next week, Bob Tidy, who's huge in the US. He has a blog that's followed by leaders in over 190 countries. He's the author of 3 top-selling books, one of which is a Fortune 100 listed book, Great Leaders Ask Great Questions. He'll be discussing that leadership is not just about knowing the right answers, it's about understanding and asking the right questions. So I'm well excited that he's with us. So who's got some questions? Let's have some questions for the last 5 minutes.
Bob, we got one question here already. Bob, what's the toughest objection you've had to answer?
Oh, toughest objection would have been from a guy called Javier, who worked for a global manufacturing company. And the offer was 2.6 million for a project. And he said to me, Bob, if I'm going to spend 2.6 million, if it goes wrong and I've hired you, I'm going to get fired. I might as well hire Accenture. They're the incumbent people. If I hired them and it went wrong, nobody would bat an eyelid. Why should I choose you? The answer was to use social proof, which is a concept which comes from Robert Cialdini's book, and we've included a bit of that in Persuade, our book. And it's about saying, what I said to him was, Jeff Johnson at BMW's decided on a similar project twice. Angela Greenfield at Vodafone decided on a similar project twice. And the guys at Husqvarna have made that same decision 4 times. You know, the people in your position don't make the same mistake twice. It wasn't a mistake for them. It won't be a mistake for you.
Good.
Sign the order.
Here's another question from someone anonymous. How do you overcome built-in politeness? Someone says a big no and we're not interested at all. How do you ignore the politeness and push forward?
Well, we've used the word interested. They're not interested. So that would suggest that they're thinking we're offering something, or we already have offered something. They may not yet realize they have some pain or some issues. And that often is the starting point. So sometimes I will do research and diagnosis on clients that doesn't involve the decision makers. You know, on the 4 legs of the chair, one of the legs of the chair is a source of information, so that you can find out things about the company and start some diagnosis before you start to talk to the decision maker. And then you can present some of that evidence anonymously, if you have to said decision maker. And all of a sudden, you're suggesting that we do some diagnosis on their issues. It's not about you, it's about them. Now, there's a lot more about that technique in a book called Mastering Complex Sales, which talks about using the discovery process as a real selling tool. The discovery and diagnostic process is the answer. So I would put some research in earlier, and I would put research in with non-decision makers. One leg of your chair, and you need 4 legs. One of them is the source of information. Then use that on the decision makers.
Final question, Bob, because we're on time now. Question coming up a couple of times. Can you explain the idea of the negative present, please?
The negative present is the pain they feel. So an example would be my knee. My knee in my Mercedes was a pain. I went to the doctor because I was in pain. I realized I had the pain. I wanted to do something about it. I made the decision to go because it hurt. You get companies that decide to do sales training because they realize they've just lost a huge order and it hurts. So it doesn't matter what features and benefits I address and say are in the training program. The real reason they're buying the training is because they just lost a big order. You often find that people will make a decision based on what's happening in their life at that time. And what we as salespeople think is it's all about the benefits they're going to have in the future. And it's not, because unless there's a self-realization of the need, then they're not going to buy anything. We have to take them on a journey to discover their current pain. And if we can't find it, there probably is no sale unless they just fancy a new car. There's no reason to have it. I will sometimes buy myself a new golf club, but there's no reason to have it. But there's vast majority of times, there's only a sale where there is a self-realization of a need.
Thanks, Bob. That's pretty clear. I think we're on time now. Do you want to talk about an offer this week?
The special offer is a free training program for one person. That's our prize winner, and that's a 90-minute training program. So what have you picked a winner for me, Walter?
I have indeed, and it's Lauren Robertson.
So Lauren Robertson, you and I can talk later, and you've won yourself a 90-minute free skills training program at a topic that you wish that I can cover. The special offer to the entire group is a better than half price offer. You can have 4 such training sessions, 90 minutes for up to 12 people, for less than half price. So well done, Lauren, on winning. And for those of you that answer the survey, then you're entitled to a free copy of Persuade, the ebook, a free closing guide, and a pre-publication offer for the new book, The Profit Secret. If you sign up for that as well, you'll get a free ebook when that comes out later this year. And of course, if you've completed the survey, you're also entitled to a 30-minute chat with one of the hosts. Thank you so much for being part of us. And I hope you enjoyed that session. And I hope you come back and join Bob Tidy next week, because he's huge. It's going to be great. Thanks very much. Goodbye.